How's it going, people of the internet and my merry band of subscribers? This is a simple and easy to understand review of the Dell XPS 15 laptop. So I should start by saying that I'm not the most tech-savvy guy in town, but I do know when electronics work and when they meet my expectations. So with that being said, let's get into my review of the Dell XPS 15 laptop. My version of the Dell XPS 15 features Intel's 8th generation i7 processor, a 15-inch 4K Ultra HD infinity-edge display with 100% adobeRGB coverage, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes of internal memory, as well as the NVIDIA GeForce GTX video card. But before we get into all that, let's start with the design of the XPS. Honestly, I've never really cared about laptop design. I think performance is way more important, but the design of the XPS 15 is nothing to complain about. The silver and black color scheme create a pretty sleek looking laptop, and at least for me, that's more than enough, since I don't really look too much into how pretty a laptop is. I care more about if it could do the things that I want it to do. Moving on to the display. When I was shopping for a laptop, having a 4K screen was pretty high on my list because I had just gotten my A7RIII, and 4K video editing was something I wanted to get into, and I thought the 100% adobeRGB coverage would help a lot with my photo editing. And after owning the XPS for more than 3 months, the display has more than satisfied both of those needs. The screen's clarity is amazing, and the color accuracy has helped enhance both my video and photography editing, although I still have a lot to learn about color corrections when it comes to video editing. Now there is one pretty big issue that I had with the screen that has to be mentioned, and it's that although the screen is excellent when it's working, mine broke less than 3 weeks into owning it. Soon after it arrived, the bottom half of my screen turned into a jumble of lines and colors. The repairs were covered by my insurance, but losing a laptop for 10 days of repair after I just bought it wasn't exactly a great experience. And I was able to find people online, like Googling around, that had similar issues with their screens, but I didn't really find anything that matched exactly with what happened to me. So I'm not sure if it's common among this brand of laptop, or if it was just somehow damaged during its shipment from the US to my home in Japan. But in the past 3 or 4 months since then, I haven't had any issues with the screen. And now that it is working properly and I don't have any weird glitches, it really is a really great screen for video editing and photography editing. And I see a lot of people talk about how awkward the placement of the webcam is on the Dell XPS, but I haven't used a webcam in I'm not sure how long, so although it is really weird, it kind of looks up your nose when you use it. I personally don't use the webcam, so it matters very little. So if you're not the kind of person that does Skype or maybe video interviews, I don't think it's going to be a issue for you. I mean, I think most people that still Skype are using their phones. So it's a little weird design flaw or choice, but overall it doesn't affect my opinion of the laptop itself. Coming off of using the Surface Pro for the past year, I love having a full set of ports, and this was actually the deciding factor when I was comparing the Dell XPS 15 to the Apple MacBook Pro. After having to deal with just one USB port and a small micro SD card in the back of the Surface, there was no way that I was going to switch to the MacBook Pro that has, I think, 4 USB-C types. Even if they're Thunderbolt ports, having access to a full assortment of ports without any kind of dongle has been really great. When I'm uploading photos from my A7RIII, I could just take the SD card directly out of my camera and stick it into the side of the XPS 15. If I have to connect it to a TV, it has a full-sized HDMI port. It has one USB-C Thunderbolt port. And at least for someone like me who hates having dongles, the convenience that you get from having a bunch of full-size ports just blew the MacBook Pro out of the water, and that's why I ended up going with this Or at least that's one of the reasons why I ended up going with this computer. So moving on to something that I see a lot of people sort of like arguing about in a lot of online forums, and they talk about it a lot in other reviews. It's the keyboard. I've never really had a keyboard that stood out as being a great or a terrible keyboard. They all just really feel like keyboards to me. And the same is true for the XPS's keyboard. It's not uncomfortable, the trackpad seems accurate and responsive, and it types what I want it to. So that's really all I have to say about the keyboard. So if you're the kind of person that like has a really strict criteria for your keyboards, I don't have too much information on that. I have no complaints with it. I'm able to type on it all day, and I don't have any really issues or anything negative to say about it. So sorry if that explanation of the keyboard doesn't satisfy you, but that's the best I've got since keyboards aren't really too important to me. The only time I could see it maybe mattering is if you're like a PC gamer, but I am in no way a PC gamer, so I have no opinions on keyboard comfort and PC gaming comfort. And finally getting to what I think most people are most interested in, it's the performance of the XPS 15. So like I said in the intro, I'm not a very techie guy, and this is meant to be an easy to understand review, so I won't be going into benchmarks and whatnot, but I will say that this build of the XPS 15 is powerful, and it more than surpassed my expectations. Editing with Lightroom and Photoshop has been a breeze. I haven't had any trouble going through and editing large batches of photos. Importing and exporting have been like lightning fast, and the only problem I've had seems to be caused by Lightroom, which at least in my experience has always been a little funky. When it comes to editing 4K video from my Sony A7RIII, I couldn't be happier. I'm able to scrub through clips without any lag. Exporting time is great. If I had to put a number on it, I'd say maybe 10 minutes of 4K footage takes like 8 to 10 minutes to export, sometimes even less. So overall, I'm really happy with the performance of the Dell XPS 15. Like, it's been able to do everything I wanted it to do. I've had no issues other than that faulty screen, and I was able to get a lot of performance for a lot less money than the Apple MacBook Pro. So I definitely have like no regrets about buying this laptop. And I almost forgot to talk about the battery life on the Dell XPS 15. And that's because most of the time I'm using the computer with the power cord plugged in. It's very rare, I'd say like 99% of the time I'm editing with it plugged into power. I almost never use it on its internal power. But the few times that I have taken it off, like just to do some small photo editing or a little quick video edit, it's not anything like amazing. I don't feel like it lasts a really long time, but it's also not running out of battery in like less than an hour. I'd say it's decent for what it can do, for how powerful it is, but at least for me, I don't see any situations where I'm going to be editing large amounts of 4K video on the battery. So I think in most cases, for people who are editing video or photos or doing any sort of computer stuff, as long as you're at home, you should be fine with the battery. And one last thing to add, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering whether or not this thing can play PC games. And I'm not at all a PC gamer. I'm a console gamer. I always have been, and probably always will be. So I don't think this is a gaming PC, but I feel like it could handle most games, maybe like Oblivion or something like that, at like standard settings. It does have a graphics card, but it's not a gaming graphics card, and I don't know the difference, but I don't think it'd be able to play games at like ultra high settings. But just I feel like, and what I've seen mentioned on other videos and forums, it seems like you can play video games at a decent like graphics setting, but don't expect to be getting like super high quality HD 4K gaming experiences out of this laptop. I think Dell has like specific gaming PC setups for that. Or if you're like a legit PC gamer, then you probably know how to build your own gaming PC. So that's it for my review of the Dell XPS 15 laptop. I hope you find this simple review useful. I know a few months ago when I was looking at reviews for this thing, a lot of them were really heavy on like benchmarks and tech specs, and all that stuff sort of goes like right over my head. So I thought maybe a kind of like a review by a average Joe would be useful to other average Joes. So if you like this video, make sure to thumb it up, and if you'd like to see other reviews or videos about Japan, games, or photography, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that little ring-a-ding next to the subscribe button. And as always, be sure to follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you in the next video.